So welcome everyone to Business Women Australia. Tonight we're meeting online to really delve into the leadership lessons from Sportsmanship. We're very, very fortunate to have Dr. Sasha Fulton on board with us tonight. But before we make progress on that subject, what we'll be doing is just talking a little bit about BWA and give everyone else a chance to jump on board. So for those of you who haven't met me before, I'm Lyn Hawkins. I'm the National Director and the founder of Business Women Australia. We're a collective that is all around the nation, and we've been in operation since 2015, 2016. Before we progress tonight, I'd really like to acknowledge the country in which we're all meeting. We're in various parts. There's a lot of ladies here from the region, but I'm actually on the land of the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation. And I'd like to acknowledge that they've lived, danced and celebrated on this beautiful place for 60 to 120,000 continuous years. And I'd like to pay our respects to all Indigenous elders, past, present and emerging, and celebrate our Indigenous sisters in business. If you'd like to share the country that you're meeting and tuning in on in the chat room, please go ahead and share that with us. Business Women was really set up to create a co-creation model where women could get together and really build some collaborations around the sorts of things that we held dear to our hearts. So we really set out to be this great and most visible collaborative community, and I think we've really achieved that because we don't sit back and come up with a whole bunch of topics at the beginning of every year. We really work with our members and our leaders to identify what are the things that are leading, what are the groundbreaking types of things we can share so that we can all be continuously improving what we're doing and achieving our goals and dreams and building this amazing network of influence around Australia. So, people ask me, who is in BWA? It's really a mix of women from all professions, from all sectors and across the various states of Australia. There's no sort of type of businesswoman. There's quite a few entrepreneurs and business owners, but there's also a lot of directors and managers, employees, emerging leaders. There's women on boards. We've got some really great topics coming up, particularly for chairs and board directors that are in our webinar program as well. So by all means, feel free to tap into what we're doing. You don't have to join as a member. If you're interested in improving your own leadership, if you're interested in improving the business aspects of the work that you're doing, whether it's government, enterprise, education, sports, we would welcome you to join any of our events and learn with us. Yeah, I think it's that magic in the mix. There's a lot of personal growth that comes from that and professional knowledge sharing. And through it, I think we really start to connect this movement of women, and that's the influence and the profile that we're trying to generate, seeing women being very visible as leaders in the general business and key community groups. So connecting is what it's really all about. Obviously, being an organisation that was designed and developed by women, we spent quite a lot of time at the beginning looking at what our shared values were going to be and that we would actually measure our behaviour around. And being an organisation that is collaborative, we do a lot of experimenting. So we're very open-minded. We're very courageous in trialling things. We bring a lot of energy and positive optimism to what we do, and we learn a lot of lessons along the way. So we really love having a go at doing things. Some of the things that we do work better than others, but we'd love for you to all get involved. If you want to become a member, that's great. If you would just love to drop in and out as guests into our webinars and our various programs and courses, you're always welcome to do that as well. One of the exciting things we did recently launch was our relationship and partnership with Fire Up. They're an RTO that's based out of Sunshine Coast, and we identified them as the leaders in accredited coaching courses for business and personal coaching. All their Cert 4 and their diplomas in coaching are ICF accredited. So we've partnered with them in offering coaching accreditation. I've just done my Cert 4 and I've just started my diploma, and I can highly recommend it. If anyone's got any questions about that, they're 6 months programs. They're amazing. For those of you who are keen on social media, we love to have you joining our group on LinkedIn. That's open to anyone to join, to follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. And our hashtags most used are BWA events and hashtag BWA leaders are our two most commonly ones. Our website is full of information, so please jump on there. And of course, we couldn't do what we do without these amazing partners that work their asses off in the background, to be honest. Catco look after all our web design. They look after our social media, all our digital strategies. Solo accounts are the team that look after our invoicing and deal with our accountants. The Hawkins marketing team, which is my company, in the background support with a lot of the event management and our database marketing. And of course, Intact teams, the wonderful Jessica Schubert is our head of leadership development. And she is overseeing a lot of our work in that area with Lead the Future program. Anne-Marie Cross is our podcast queen. We're very excited to have been named the #1 podcast, the Business Women Australia podcast show for business women in Australia. So being named that is a bit of a coup. Of course, Fire Up Coaching, 3 Drops, our favourite wine. The Joe Bradbury from Great Southern. Some of you may have come across 3 Drops. They're a wonderful success story in WA. And Jo loves hosting our wine tasting events all around Australia. She can't wait for the flexibility to travel interstate. I think Brisbane and Melbourne, we've had to cancel our wine tasting over there so many times. And I think they're looking forward to seeing Jo as much as she is to see them. And the wonderful Vida Carlino with the beautiful inspiration source work that she does with women's circle work and the beautiful space that she has in Inglewood that's there for a lot of the conscious and courageous conversations that we host in person in her space. So lots coming up. Like I said, I'd love to see you all at our 8th of March conversation. We're actually being inspired by the work of Care Australia. They've actually created these gorgeous conversation cards, and Julie Broad, who's is now relocated to Bunbury, our new chapter leader there, is hosting an online conversation in the theme of hashtag Break the Bias, which is the International Women's Day theme this year. You're all welcome to jump on that. There's no cost to join that conversation. We'd love to see you. It's an early morning, I think 8 o'clock start for West Coasters. A little bit more my kind of start at 11 o'clock for the East Coast people. So we'd love to see anyone from all around Australia to join that conversation. We've got chapters in Rockingham, 9th of March. We've got chapters in Mandurah Murray on the 23rd of March. They're doing some fun things. Our Perth chapter on the 16th of March is a conscious conversation, very much Chatham House rules, small group, and we'll be delving into the inside and the outside authorities that govern a lot of our thinking and our behaviours. They're really quite amazing, those circles, and I really highly recommend, if you're looking for something that's a little more deep and meaningful with women, a lot of professional and executive and even we've had quite a few young emerging leaders join us, and it's just beautiful seeing the honesty of women sharing their truth in that situation. Sydney, 24th of March, for those of you who are looking at the recording, be lovely to catch up for a morning tea and mingle there. And then again, our next one on the 5th of April back in Perth for another one at the Inspiration Space, this time looking at the age of information and how we're acting versus the age of wisdom, which is what we're calling the new age. And we can certainly see that in the women's movement. It's exciting times ahead. So if you are interested in joining as a member and tapping into the member prices of all those events, if that looks like something you'd like to be a part of, we'd love to have you. Membership fees help us keep these things going, but we're not about drumming up membership. Our premium level members are really the leaders in our group. We've got, we choose all our, source all our podcast interviews and our speakers and our collaborations now from our premium level membership. We'd rather support our own membership. These are really the leaders, the specialists, the thought leaders in the business community, and we sort of help them develop an amplification package if they're really trying to connect with their network or their audience. We work with them in those sorts of things. So we do bring a lot of strategy and support to that level. If any of that sounds like you've got inspiring you with ideas, or if you've got ideas of co-creating with us, drop me a line, lyn@businesswomenaustralia.com.au. That's enough of my promotion. I'm actually going to hand over to the wonderful Dr. Sasha Fulton, and this topic about sportsmanship and leadership came out of a conversation that we had in a cafe a while ago. And as an organisational strategist, I'm always interested in what we can learn from the field of elite sports and sportsmanship in terms of taking it into organisations. You know, leaders are really struggling in what we're calling VUCA times. You know, these are volatile times full of uncertainty, complexity and ambiguity. You might hear this word being thrown around the place, VUCA. And with VUCA and these times, it's really when people are looking at their own leadership styles and how they can create cultures where leadership, you know, is really nurtured. And when I listen to Sasha talking about the things that she does and her thinking, you know, we realise that there's so many opportunities that she can take from the area of sports science and be applying in the corporate world. And I can really see that companies are going to be looking to her to come in and speak to them about these sorts of topics so that they can be starting to think outside the box and start to be really thinking about how to apply the lessons that we're learning in the field of sports into the world of business. Sasha, as you know, or you may not know, but she's obviously a PhD. She did her PhD in the world of Paralympic swimming. She's been an accredited sports scientist. She's prepped the Australian Paralympian team right through to 2013 and is still involved with the Institute and the regional sports programs around the state, helping young athletes and really being the amazing specialist that she is. She's an adventure enthusiast. She's an athlete. She's been interviewed on podcast, and she really is stepping up and having a go at bringing great new thinking into the world of not just sports, but into the world of organisational change. Most importantly of all, she's a mother of gorgeous Ashley, and I had to share this photo. I just think that's gorgeous. I'm like thinking that is just such a cutest nose rub, and I'm sure Ashley didn't catch anything from that kangaroo, but I'm going to stop that share and hand over now to the wonderful Sasha. So tell us what is it that we should, what should we be, be thinking about when it comes to this concept of sportsmanship?
Well, it's it's a really tricky one. There was a story which I'm gonna tell you guys about that was my kind of pivotal turning point in terms of what I deemed sportsmanship to be and why I felt it was of such importance. But before I share one of my own stories, I wanted to share this particular story with you. So bear with me because I have to read a couple of things here. You might have heard about this story already, but this one kind of certainly warmed my heart. So the spirit of cricket is alive and well. A touching act of sportsmanship in an international cricket game between two minnows would have warmed the hearts of even the most cynical cricket fan. The impressive act took place during a recent match between Ireland and Nepal in a warm-up for the T20 World Cup qualifiers. During the game, Irish tailender Mark Adair attempted a big heave into the onside, but barely connected with the ball, which had ballooned across the pitch. He took off for a quick single, and Nepal's bowler Kamal Singari sprinted to collect the ball, only to bump into Andy McBride, who was coming from the non-striker's end. McBride got tripped up and landed flat on his face. and was way short of the crease at the striker's end when Singaree threw the ball to wicketkeeper Asif Sheikh. But in a gracious act of sportsmanship, Sheikh opted not to knock off the bails and run at McBride, acknowledging he was seriously impeded by tripping over the bowler. So my question was, what is this thing called sportsmanship? So if two international teams playing for a place on a T20 World Cup final can engage in this act of sportsmanship, I wanted to be a part of that. So welcome to Peak Preparation's Leadership Lessons from Sportsmanship. I won't tell you any more about myself because Lyn has already kindly shared that. But I did want to tell you my kind of defining moment of sportsmanship. And it came when I was in training for the Hawaiian Ironman World Championships, which I competed in a very long time ago, but back in 2004. It's taken me a very long time to be proud of this event, but finally I am proud of this accomplishment. And it was in the lead up to this event. I was racing another Ironman, and look, I always raced very blindfolded. I raced very blinkered, let's call it, very, very focused. I would not acknowledge anything around me. I was completely and utterly tunnel visioned when I raced. I ignored spectators. I ignored officials, especially if they were telling me off. I ignored, you know, friends and family giving me encouragement on the sideline. Friends often remind me of, you know, various races that I've done. And they were like, you remember when I ran next to you with a beer for 20 meters? And I don't remember any of it. And it's funny because at the time when I was racing, I was convinced that I was upholding the values of sport, you know, undeniable resilience and courage and, you know, not being able to just tunnel visioned. And it's really taken me a long time to see that I was actually so far away from that, it wasn't funny. And the moment for me came when I suffered in one of my sort of pinnacle races to qualify for this race. I suffered a serious mechanical failure about 50 kilometres out from the finish line of the bike. Serious enough that I was literally sitting on the side of the road, head in my lap going, I don't know what to do now. And lots of people rode past me, as I would have done. I wouldn't have even seen the person sitting on the side of the road until one of my teammates pulled up alongside me and basically canned his entire race to help me out and get me back on my feet. And I was so overwhelmed and emotional and flabbergasted, I guess, that he would you know, stop his race to help me out, that I had to kind of unpack this. I couldn't work out what it was at the time. Now, of course, I see that it was sportsmanship, but I'm still, I'm going to get you guys to help me with this, to be honest. I'm still unpacking exactly what sportsmanship is, but let's give it a go together. So what I'm hoping we could do to start off, and Lyn's going to help me out here with maybe, I don't know, whatever Lyn thinks, maybe 2 or 3 breakout rooms. But I'm hoping, before I get into the crux of this presentation, I'm hoping that you could share an experience of sportsmanship that you have seen, whether it be a personal experience, whether it be something, you know, an international one, but just so I can get a bit of a feel for what do you see sportsmanship as? What is a memory? What has stood out to you as being an act of sportsmanship? And could you share that with us?
Okay, we've got about 15, I think, online. So I'm going to put you into 4 different breakout rooms. So think about an experience of sportsmanship. So it was thinking about and sharing that in their group?
Yes.
What is it? What are the values of sportsmanship?
just not the values yet, just sharing
just
an
the
experience.
Okay.
Just an experience of sportsmanship.
Okay, and if you can choose a scribe, I'll give you like a 60-minute warning, a 60-second warning. Choose a scribe or someone that's a spokesperson for your group at the beginning. Be great for one of you to volunteer, then it saves time and you can get straight into your chats, so that when we come back, I'll get each of the volunteer scribes or spokespeople to share what the group came up with. You know, it's a bit of a summary. So here's a chance to meet each other into 4 groups, and it's just automatic. So I'll pop in and see if everyone's happy in the groups. So some of you 3 and some of you 2. Sasha, I'll put you into a group 2. How's that?
Perfect. Lovely.
Okay, I'll just open all the rooms now.
A few more faces.
Okay, we're back to recording. So over to you, Sash. Did you want to get the speakers to share some?
Yeah, absolutely. It's lovely to have a few more faces on board here as well. So good evening, everyone who I didn't see beforehand. Well, we might start with my room if we can. I'm not the speaker because I feel like I was going to speak enough. So Kelly Perry is going to speak on our behalf. So Kelly, over to you.
Hi everyone. So basically, we just shared a couple of stories. So I had Tracy in our group, was Sasha, and she shared the story about Adam Gilchrist in the cricket, like when he was talking about the umpire gave him a not out, but he felt like he was out, so he walked. So that was kind of an issue. And then the example, and then the other example I gave was when I was younger and I was a runner, and I kind of let one of the other women win the race because her dad, who had serious cancer, was turned up to the race, and that was right before he passed away. So I wanted him to experience seeing his daughter win a really important race. So that was a turning point for me when I felt like I realized I'm not an athlete. Could have been an elite athlete. I was a junior athlete, and then I didn't make it to the seniors because I didn't have that competitive side to me. So what we talked about from that was maybe sportsmanship there's a level of maturity. We talked about Nick Kyrgios in the tennis, and how he seems to be doing a lot more events, such as an Australian Open recently when a tennis ball hit a child and he went and gave that child a tennis racket. And so we're seeing, like, for some athletes, that maturity might be like influencing their sportsmanship and bringing it a little bit more to the fore, but sometimes it might be the character as well. So that's what we discussed.
That's such a great summary. Thank you so much, Kelly. Now, can someone else volunteer? Who else was a scribe for their room?
I know Mel was.
Mel, of course you were.
Oh, come on.
Good evening.
Good evening, Sasha. How are you?
Very well.
Cool. We had heaps of examples. So we talked about the Brownlee brothers in the triathlon. When one of the brothers, couldn't finish, so the other one came sweeping along and just basically carried him over the edge, over the finish line there. Some Olympic examples in the athletics. There's a Kiwi runner that picked up an American who had tripped over, and sort of, and the cameras love zooming in on that sort of stuff and the stories from the Olympics. Some cricket examples there. Adam Gilchrist one was one. And we also talked about Craig Stevens giving up his spot on the Olympic team when Thorpe false started in the trials for the 400 at the 2004 Olympic trials. And Craig Stevens gave up his spot. So we kind of summarized it in a heap of dot points I've got here is about humanity or caring for somebody else. The sport or the situation is bigger than just yourself and doing things for the greater good. We talked about getting along with people for the success of the team that you may not normally get along with, and bringing out the best in people is the kind of the key notes we sort of got there.
Oh, thank you so much, Mel. That was, wow. That was, you guys, that was a huge amount to do in 5 minutes. So
yeah, we
really,
slammed it.
Yeah, you did. You absolutely slammed it. There were some very memorable sporting. I've got goosebumps everywhere now. I've got a couple of those examples coming up at some point, so I'll have to try and weed them out now. But no, and I love that one. Just caring. I heard the words caring and humanity there. They were sort of two big ones that connected for me. So that was awesome. Okay, who else? Do we have two other breakout rooms, Lynn, or one? Two. Third scribe, Emma.
Yeah, I'll put my hand up.
Brilliant.
So one of our main points we discussed was the empathy, humanity, encouragement side of things. And we had quite a few examples, probably from more of a running perspective. On that side of things, putting others' needs before you. The other main one I wanted to talk about was probably honesty, and I probably haven't achieved at such a high level as some of the members in this chat tonight, but coming back at whatever level of sport, I don't think it matters, that whole honesty thing, a bit like some of the other examples. And kind of in hockey or tennis, two sports I'm involved with, not always having the line judges there, but having to own if the ball's in or out at tennis. People obviously see things different at certain times of matches. And the same in hockey, particularly coming back from playing high level in Perth, coming back to regional sport where you don't have umpires at such high standards, I guess, as what you're used to. You've just got to own some decisions sometimes and put your hand up. Maybe your team's not happy with you, particularly if it's a tense game, but I think you've still got to own and be honest with knowing inside what's right. They were our two main points.
Thank you, Emma. I love that you've brought it back, which naturally you would have, to the regional side of things. And that's actually probably something that I hadn't really thought myself. I think I was thinking so much about the Olympic side of things, where of course you do, everything is being scrutinized and videoed, and there's almost no chance to, sort of cheat or anything. But when you go back to regional sport, you don't have all of that support around. And it would be super easy to, for your eyes to tell you something else if you really wanted them to. But to, so I guess for young kids, at that young age, to get into the habit and I guess of, owning it, as you said, owning it. I love that. That embodies sportsmanship to me, for sure.
I love that too, as an example that in companies and, listening to all your great examples, that's a massive one in terms of honesty in corporate.
Huge.
And governance, the underpinning of governance. If we had more sportsmanship in corporate life, then the governance piece would be a lot easier if everyone was operating from those values of honesty and care for others and the sorts of things that Mel was doing. There's another group though too, isn't there?
I think there is. Who's Angie's pointing to someone. Is that Alana?
Is that Rosalind or?
Alana and Rosalind, Dr. Carbon. Who was your scribe? I can nominate someone if you don't want to. Alana, it's got to be you.
Okay, no worries.
It definitely was.
we had the Brownlee brothers as our main example from Rosalind because of her involvement in triathlon and that picking somebody up, and obviously being a twin brother as well. That's a huge component of the sport to look at that humanity side. But in fact, the outcome of that, Rosalind was saying that actually triathlon has gone the direction where you're not allowed to do that anymore. So it's banned. So it's actually become that part of sportsmanship has become banned, which is what we all, I guess, we glorify about the sport, is thinking beyond yourself. And Angie gave lots of examples sort of in football and cricket with that honesty component where you're honest about whether you've touched the ball or clipped it with the bat, so that it's keeping that honesty within the game and honesty within yourself to keep the results as true and honest as possible. And then for myself, I gave a personal example of actually giving an athlete some hand guards so that she could compete unexpectedly didn't expect to be competing on uneven bars at a World Cup final after the Sydney Olympics, and she just didn't turn up with her handguards, thinking she wouldn't be competing. And I gave her my spare set so that she could still compete, and we would have a full complement of athletes competing in the final, rather than only having sort of 5 or 6, to give it a real good juicy mix of competition. And then we discussed about, like other groups, that humanity, and that they're athletes, but they're actually humans first. And it really shows how important that we are to treat athletes as humans first and foremost, and not just about the results, and that sportsmanship is almost sitting above the level of actually the sport and the rules, and more about giving that perception role model to general life, and what you want kids and people to be in other facets of life. But obviously the rules are what govern sport. So I guess that's a really big debate that Rosalind was talking about. Is it following the rules, or is it keeping that sort of sportsmanship, and where does it sit within those rules?
Oh, that's awesome, guys, and that's such a lovely one to kind of finish on. By the way, this is the end of the presentation. This is it. I don't think I need to talk anymore. You guys have done really well. No, I'm joking. But no, just that concept around its sportsmanship. It's bigger than sport, in a way. That I think that's a quite a neat summary. Almost, it's bigger than the individual. It's about the big picture. We spoke briefly about the one that came to mind was Nick Kyrgios with the Victorian bushfire appeal, and he set up that tournament, to raise money, and he sort of, he spoke throughout that tournament saying, "Come on, guys, this is not just about tennis. It's more than this. This is about humanity." So that was a really awesome session. I'm so pleased that this is being recorded. So thank you, everyone, so much for your input there. Now, if I share my screen again, hopefully you can all see it. So getting kind of back into the presentation itself, the key concepts for me that underpin sportsmanship were, I'm trying to cover off these 3 topics. So what is this thing called sportsmanship? Sportsmanship values, and some great acts of sportsmanship to continue the inspiration for us all. So what is this thing called sportsmanship? As Wikipedia defines sportsmanship, sportsmanship is an aspirational ethos that a sport or activity will be enjoyed for its own sake. This is with proper consideration for fairness, ethics, respect, and a sense of fellowship for one's competitors. A sore loser refers to one who does not take defeat well, whereas a good sport means being a good winner as well as being a good loser. Someone who shows courtesy towards another in a sports game. So I kind of took this definition, and I wanted to, it wasn't enough for me at the time, and I wanted to delve a little bit deeper into what did this actually mean? What did a good sport mean? What did a good winner mean? And what did a good loser really mean? So I went on and found this little quote. So we cannot exhibit good sportsmanship without first being ethical. I was like, okay, feel like I'm onto something here. So I think for me, the term sportsmanship evokes a sense of warmth and fuzziness that we almost all crave. It evokes a sense of respect. It's a fashionable word used in school and infused within sports teams. Made of part of character building, some would argue instead of building character, it builds characters. And I really like that. And so I found that I had 4 values in front of me. I had courtesy, respect, ethics, and character. That's what had come out of those two definitions. And so what I came to was, with sportsmanship comes leadership. So how do we continue to actually define that? And I thought we had to turn to what are the values of sportsmanship. What are the values that make sportsmanship sportsmanship? Values strengthen your ability to influence. When you act and behave from your values, you connect to your passions. When you act and behave with passion, people are drawn to you and are more likely to hear your message. I don't know how many of you guys watched the Winter Olympics that have just been in Beijing, obviously for 2022, but there was a young girl who really stood out for me. And it wasn't just what she did athletically on the snow. And bear with me if you know this story already. But you're looking at the face of the Beijing Winter Olympic Games, 19-year-old Eileen Feng Gu. So Eileen was born to a Chinese mother and American father. She was raised in America, but she opted to ski for China. She opted to ski for the country of China. And interestingly, she was interviewed prior to her first event at the Games. And of course, she's a model as well, and sort of being the face of the Games, it was all about whether she was going to win the gold medal or not. And so the commentator was sort of desperate to get out of her, you know, what's it going to be like to win the gold medal? And Eileen just sort of, you know, looked at this commentator and said, I don't really know what you mean, because as far as I'm concerned, I've already won the gold medal. And the commentator said, well, hold on, you haven't competed yet. So you how can, you know, that's I'm not quite following you. And Eileen just said, I opted to compete for China because I could influence more women. That's why I'm competing for China. By standing up here and competing for China, I'm influencing, let's call it 1 billion women. I've won the gold medal. There isn't anything else to win. Suffice to say, she was also an incredible athlete, and she did go on to win a gold medal and a silver medal. But it was that it was that sort of ethos that she had. It just knocked me over for a 19-year-old as well. And that really, I mean, talk about a warm and fuzzy. That gave me the absolute warm and fuzzies, and it kind of still does now. So I went into this, and again, you're going to have to bear with me a little bit here, but I went into this with what are then leadership principles and values that are inspired by sportsmanship. And I came up with 5 pillars: competence, confidence, connections, character, and caring. And to each pillar of sportsmanship, if you like, I assigned what I thought were 3 values that really represented that pillar well. So for competence, I had wisdom, learning, and growth. Confidence, I had courage, resilience, and integrity. Connections, I had gratitude, authenticity, and responsibility. Character, I had kindness, patience, and forgiveness. And then for caring, I had respect, listening, and compassion. And I wanted to delve a little bit deeper into exactly what each of these values, really stood for. So again, bear with me with a little bit of a definition here, and a code that I've put together as well for each of these values. So I know we're a little bit on the time pressure side. Lynn, you can keep me accountable here. But I'm going to give you 3 definitions for one pillar, and then share with you a great act of sportsmanship that I think defines those 3 values. Wisdom is the ability to apply what you know, knowledge, along with your intelligence to make the best choices. Wisdom is about the bigger picture. So for a wisdom code, you could say, I cultivate wisdom to make better choices, to know and heal myself, and to grow. For learning, I had, you're a big believer in the value of always learning. The more you learn, the more you realize how little you know and how much more there is to learn, which excites you. You'll never run out of things to learn, and it will never get boring. And the learning code, I aim not to become an expert, but to always be learning. And finally, growth. If growth is one of your core values, you look for opportunities to grow as a person and to help others grow too. You know that growth isn't a destination, but a process. You recognise true and wholehearted collaboration as an asset for growth. And the growth code, every day I'm growing more into the person I want to be. So a great act of sportsmanship that for me really summarised those three values was the 1936 Summer Olympics. So Lutz Long was a German athlete who competed in long jump alongside Jesse Owens at the 1936 Olympic Games in Nazi Germany. Owens was Long's strongest opponent in the leap to first place. And when the African-American found his first 2 attempts, this could have been the perfect opportunity to slide into first place. Nonetheless, Lutz advised him to mark out his run-up again, which allowed Owens to qualify and eventually go on to win the gold medal. Lutz came in second, winning the silver medal, but not after being the first to congratulate Owens on his success. Despite the racial tensions of Nazi Germany, Lutz walked arm in arm around the track with Owens, and this became the start of a lifelong friendship. Beautiful, heart-jerking, tear-jerking, to me, again, just completely and utterly summarised this thing called sportsmanship, which I'm still trying to unpack. Okay, so the confidence values: courage, resilience, and integrity. Courage is about doing what you believe needs to be done, not in the absence of fear, but in spite of it. Courage requires a step outside of your comfort zone. If you have no fear, you don't need courage. And the courage code: I do what needs to be done, even when fear comes along for the ride. Resilience. Resilience is the ability to recover from and adapt to change or misfortune. When things go bad, you find a way to pivot and keep moving forward. The more you respond to knockdowns by getting back up, the more automatic it becomes. The resilience code: I cultivate resilience by looking for the lessons in every challenge. And integrity. Integrity is about acting and speaking in accordance with your beliefs. If you say one thing but do the opposite, you aren't likely to be recognised as a person of integrity. If it doesn't feel right, you're faced with a choice: either change your belief or change your actions. And the integrity code: what I believe is made clear by what I say and do. On Christmas Day in 1996, English sailor Pete Goss showed an incredible act of sportsmanship. A month and a half into the round-the-world Vendée, he received a Mayday alert that a competitor, French sailor Raphael Dinelli's yacht, had been wrecked in a storm in the Southern Ocean and was in need of help. Goss immediately abandoned his course in the race and set off, sailing through hurricane winds to rescue Dinelli. Despite his yacht being knocked down various times en route, he managed to locate him with the aid of an Australian Air Force plane. He was awarded the Légion d'Honneur by France, and the two men have remained close friends ever since. And again, really similar to some of those knockdown stories that we've heard at the Olympic Games, with track runners helping each other up, the Brownlee brothers helping each other up. Connection values: gratitude, authenticity, responsibility. Gratitude. When gratitude is a core belief, you make time for it every day. You might create the habit of writing a daily gratitude list and place a high value on a daily mindfulness practice. Gratitude code: in the morning, throughout the day, and in the evening, I express and feel gratitude for the good things in my life. Authenticity is being truthful about who you are. It means speaking your truth openly and honestly, not hiding for fear of criticism or judgment, which will come anyway. Authenticity code: I live and speak my truth, choosing not to fear criticism or judgment. And responsibility: you take responsibility for your words and actions and how they impact your life and the lives of others. On the other hand, you do not take responsibility for the way others feel about you. And responsibility code: I take responsibility for my own words, actions, and feelings. And a great act of sportsmanship. In 2001, in a football game between Everton and West Ham United, Everton goalkeeper Paul Gerrard collapsed after pulling a muscle midway through the game. When passed the ball, presented with an open goal and a perfect opportunity to score, Di Canino caught the ball instead and pointed to the injured Gerrard so that he could receive medical attention right away. The goal would have counted, but Di Canino chose an act of sportsmanship over an act of personal gain, which again, I think ties into that T20 cricket match that I gave you right at the start of the presentation. Character values, kindness, patience, and forgiveness. Kindness is about treating others the way you want to be treated. Kindness takes delight in lifting others up and reminding them they're not alone, invisible, or insignificant. When you show kindness to others, you benefit as much as they do. And the kindness code, I treat others as I want to be treated, with thoughtfulness, patience, and respect. Patience is about putting yourself in others' shoes, trying to see the situation from their perspective and responding with kindness and respect. Patience code, I always treat them with the same patience I hope for them when necessity compels me to interrupt them or get in their way. And forgiveness. Forgiveness is about letting go of anger and resentment towards those who have hurt you. In forgiving them, you choose happiness. Everyone has a capacity to forgive, but not everyone has cultivated a habit of forgiveness. And the forgiveness code, I forgive those who have hurt me, and I want to be free of this anger and resentment. And a great act of sportsmanship in the 200-meter track final. Oh God, I just get the warm and fuzzies, don't you, from all of these? In the 200-meter track final of the 2008 Beijing Olympic Games, Mel, I'm thinking of Kat Porter here and I'm getting teary. American Sean Crawford finished in 4th behind winner Bolt Martina of the Netherlands and fellow American Wallace Spearman. But following the result, both Martina and Spearman were disqualified for stepping on their lane lines during the race. As a result, Crawford was awarded the silver medal, but following the games, Martina received a package from Crawford. It contained the silver medal and a note. Oh my Lord, I'm going to cry. I know this won't replace the moment, but I want you to have this because I believe it's rightfully yours. Caring values, respect, listening, and compassion. If you want to be known for treating all human or living beings with respect, you probably base that respect on something more fundamental than someone's rank or social status. The respect code, I treat all living beings with the same respect which I like to be treated. Listening. If active listening is a core value for you, you value others' input and invest time and energy in learning how to see things from their perspectives by listening to what they have to say. So thank you, everyone. I listen to others with my full attention, thank you again, so I can learn from them and show thoughtful consideration for their ideas. Thank you. Compassion. Compassion is what helps you overcome the impulse to judge another harshly. You put yourself in their shoes and you're open to what they have to say and slow to assume they're in the wrong. You want to understand them more than you want to be right. Compassion code, I make compassion the foundation of my behavior and thoughts toward others. And just a small personal share with you for that one. It's funny because when I read this definition or reread the definition back to myself of compassion, I always deemed myself to be an incredibly compassionate person until I read the last line. You want to understand them more than you want to be right. And so often for me, my drive to be right is greater than my want to understand the other person. So it's been just a really nice kind of point out for me to go, you're not there yet with compassion. You think you are, but you're actually not. You've got to overcome this sense of wanting to be right. and then you're going to be a more compassionate person. So that's my little personal one. Freddie Flintoff, 2005, the Ashes. So any cricket fans would know this one well. After a very close and intense 2005 cricket match between England and Australia, England, surprisingly, came out in an extremely narrow 2-run victory. While the crowd and team all leapt to their feet in celebration, Freddie Flintoff had spotted Australian player Brett Lee slumped over in defeat, and instead of immediately joining his own team to celebrate, Freddie walked over and offered a consoling handshake. The image of this gentle act of sportsmanship has now become one of the most famous sporting photographs of all time, and this seemingly small gesture has had a massive impact on the players and those that witnessed it. And I thought that was just a really kind of, I don't know if everyone else knows that kind of story. I'm sure a few people do. But I thought, again, that was just a nice one to finish on these sportsmanship values. So one more time, what is this thing called sportsmanship? I'm now even more convinced that with sportsmanship comes leadership. So I've got one other breakout activity that I'd love you guys to participate in after this little journey. And that is this. What is one value or idea that you could implement going forward? What's something that you've taken away from all these incredible stories and all these great sharings that you could either implement in your personal life or your professional life? I'd be really interested to see what that looks like. Lyn? So Lyn's going to send us into breakout rooms again. Okay, I'm going to start with my room because it was absolutely fantastic. And I'm going to get Bernice to kick it off for us.
Eat myself.
There we go.
All right. So we actually had a lot of things that we discussed. So the two things that have came out around the discussion, the sense of being collegial, and it's around a growth space. And as Sasha said earlier, that growth is not a destination, but the process that we go through. And it's really honing and centering the person. And the sentiment is that you learn through the experience by putting the person first. And then we spoke about resilience and compassion. And I actually said that one of the things that I really want to take away and work on is compassion. And I alluded to, coming from South Africa, the iconic leader Nelson Mandela, who said, sport has the power to change the world. But he had the compassion, to understand that, where I think a lot of us, we might like to say that, sport is this great environment and, we're keeping people in sport and there's something unique about sport. But do we really understand, the compassion, the resilience, all those values, can you take it away and really do something with it? And then we spoke about the two examples we also spoke about, it was Rafael Nadal and Roger Federer. And although they win all these big, whether they win Wimbledon or they win the Grand Slam, they always say after the game, you're going to go back to the drawing board. And so they probably look at their weaknesses and how they can go back to basics. So probably success on the field, off the field. And so we're really using sport as a vehicle in leadership. And, Sasha mentioned we love the battle and the collision. How do we get back? And then she also said that, we're thinking about Dylan Alcock is such a good advocate for sport, who's saying it's not an individual thing, is that when we say it's a disabled person, we need to change that around to say it's a person with a disability. So really being showing that compassion when we're talking and meaning it and really understanding it. So have I captured everything, Sasha, that we spoke about?
Absolutely. That was perfect.
Okay.
Absolutely perfect. So, compassion was our, one of our values and ideas to implement going forward. Thank you so much, Bernice. Okay, who was scribe in room 1? We were room 3. No, I can't see everyone here.
I think that was our room.
Mel.
Yeah, Rosalind, do you want to have a chat?
I can't see Ros, but maybe she's
here.
Ros, are you still here?
Or Alana.
Mel? Alana. I can't see Alana either.
Yeah, they're here. Oh, there's Rosalind. She's just come back on.
I'm here.
Sorry,
my computer went odd for a moment. I couldn't get myself back to you. In fact, I still can't see me, but
we can see you though, and you look gorgeous.
How odd. No, I had to put lights on. I suddenly was in the dark. So we talked about all the notions, all the concepts you defined, and indeed, for instance, Mel's had some really good news in her role at work, and feels gratitude for that, as we all do. But we did also have a discussion about the notion, particularly for women, around the values you talked about in sportsmanship, that we have to be careful that sportsmanship also includes winning and being determined and quite cutthroat in your determination and being seen to try. So I would have a little caveat that we have to just be careful that sportsmanship doesn't turn into not being the best, or not trying to be the best, or not achieving. And so part of sportsmanship is also winning and kicking butt. and women have to be allowed to do that. So, Alana and Mel have done fantastic things, and that's in sport, and that's to be applauded. And how you get there is by being fabulous. It doesn't come easy. That's also sportsmanship.
That is golden. Thank you. That is absolutely golden, and it kind of goes back to almost this concept at the kids level, the under 6s soccer team, everyone gets a medal and everyone's a winner. Well, actually, I don't think it's a good thing to be teaching kids from a young age, because you're exactly right, Ros. Sport is also about being the best and being elite, and that does mean winning. I thought that one thing I guess I've been thinking about is maybe it can be not change, but and tell me if anybody else thinks the same or disagrees. There's a winner, but maybe there aren't losers. I'm not sure the word loser kind of works so much, but I think definitely there does have to be a winner. I don't know what everybody else thinks, but thank you so much for that reminder that sport is also about winning. That's important. Okay, breakout room number 2. Who was in that room?
That was me and Ange and Kelly. So we spoke a lot about sportsmanship and compassion and how those terms can be used together. For Ange, particularly how compassion isn't necessarily a term that works with elite male athletes. So potentially sportsmanship is a better term to be using there to kind of drive that idea. But we spoke a lot about how that sportsmanship is really broken down in the values you presented, and how we can model that to those around us, and how it applies, in a sporting context, but also in our everyday lives, in our business lives. There's a lot of ways in which those values can be implemented. and then also modeling that behavior. So for those of us who are working with athletes, modeling that behavior, particularly for me working with junior athletes, I think the more that they're surrounded by people modeling good sportsmanship behavior, the more influence and opportunity we have to influence them to implement that in their own lives and careers.
Oh, absolutely. That's really, really important as well. And I guess that sort of is why, you know, hopefully, you know, some of this information gets out to your coaches and your parents and things as well, because that's exactly it. You know, the young generation is looking to the next leader to model that correct, or not correct, but to model that that behavior that we deem is sportsmanship like, and therefore holds these values of leadership. So
Sash,
yeah,
can I just add a bit of an example to that?
Yeah, and sorry, Ange, I meant to say as well, that was a really thank you so much for that input on like males and compassion. That's a really key one, and I think there are probably some words there that we need to be mindful of for the genders as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I drew some examples in our group just because I pretty much work within an all-dominated male environment. And we're doing a lot of work, or I'm leading a lot of work with the male program at the moment around psychological safety and the connection to high-performing teams. And so all of these definitions of sportsmanship and these concepts, the pillars and all the values underneath them is everything that's needed to have a psychologically safe environment so you can bring your best self to the high performance world. But the thing is some of the, and this is not all or nothing, but some of those values that underpin sportsmanship come a lot easier to women than they do to men. So working with 42 young blokes aged between 18 and 35, you know, this ability to be vulnerable, to open and expose themselves a little bit, and the ability to show compassion when it's kind of like you got to be harder and tougher and you got to persevere longer and you got to be so resilient and all this type of stuff. It really goes against the culture of what I found myself in. So I used a couple of examples of having to behave in a way to demonstrate these sportsmanship values, because I don't think they actually really are that good at knowing what they are, nor practicing how they look in behaviours. So, so it's kind of like throw a women amongst all the bloody male pigeons. And I think in those environments, or in male business environments where we're the minority, I think we have a really unique opportunity to share our connection with those values, because I think we practice them naturally, maybe more frequently or more often than perhaps some of our male counterparts.
Oh, absolutely. And that's, I think you've hit the nail on the head in terms of why we're pushing for this diversity at the moment. It's not just to have 50% women coaches in, it's not about that. It's about what women bring to sport that an all-male society doesn't have. And so having women cricketers is imperative for the male game. Having your women AFL players is absolutely vital for your Sydney Swan. Oh, sorry, I'm showing my my original state here. What do they call it? West Coast Eagles. No, I'm joking. You know what I mean. So
Dockers, please. Fremantle Dockers.
Sorry.
Come on, release. Yeah, support me here. Get behind me.
So, ladies, we will have to wrap up. I can see that this is just such a powerful conversation, and I think what we might do in the last while Sasha gathers her thoughts, maybe pop into the chat box anything that you'd like to add, because I know we didn't get a chance to go around the room with everybody and get everyone's input. But certainly the sorts of things that you're raising around sportsmanship in your worlds is so relevant to corporations and the importance of these values. And I love the way you've done the pillars and those values, Sasha, in terms of what that means for us all, you know, no matter what environment or community that we're working in, and the lessons that we're getting out of this. So pop into the chat box, perhaps an idea that you want to implement going forward. Sasha, do you want to wrap up? I'm mindful it's 7:30.
Yes, no, absolutely. I wanted to. I wrote my little summary out, and I might have to change it now with all of these fantastic stories and values that have been shared. But this is kind of what I came up with as a bit of a summary. There's a reason so many of us use sports as a metaphor for life. There are innumerable parallels between what it takes to be successful, both in real life and on the playing field. The qualities of integrity, responsibility, forgiveness, and compassion contribute to a woman's chance of winning in both arenas. There is a parallel between life and sports that doesn't get enough attention, however, and that's the connection between a woman's character off the field and her good sportsmanship on it. Good sportsmanship encompasses many aspects of a woman's character, the most fundamental being respect. The good sportsman treats her teammates and her opponents as honest equals because she treats them the way she wants to be treated. She plays with integrity and respect. A win that does not come fairly holds no satisfaction for her. She is unselfish in her desire to see all her teammates participate, thrive, and enjoy the game. She is humble in her victories and has broad perspective on her losses. In short, the qualities that go into making a good man are the same ones that contribute to being a great sportsman. And just one last share on one of my sort of favorite quotes that I think sums this up quite nicely. When the great scorer comes to mark against your life, she cares not whether you won or lost, but how you played the game of life. Thank you. And that is all.
That is amazing. And look, we're already getting some gorgeous feedback in the chat box. Thank you so much to everyone who's been here. The wealth of knowledge in this webinar and the women who have come in are real leaders. And, you know, this recording will be made available to our entire community of businesswomen. In fact, I'll put it and share it on our public website and encourage our organisational leaders to take a look at this and to take these conversations into their own environments, and hopefully with Sasha facilitating them. Look, for me, the biggest takeaway has been to bring this conversation into the boardrooms that I'm in and into the meetings that I facilitate, the teams. I'm going to ask, I work with a lot of professional firms as well, lawyers, accountants, financial and tech companies, and I'm going to ask them to think about how we can embrace these sportsmanship values while still achieving those goals around profitability and service and the long-term sustainability that we're aiming to achieve. And I think, you know, listening to, you know, the conversations around winning, I think that's, you know, definitely as companies, we're all achieving, you know, what we need to achieve from a profitability and long-term revenue generation point of view, but how can it be done with the grace of sportsmanship and the values that underpin that? And I think that is the challenge for all of us as leaders in our communities at home, you know, with our you know, education spaces and in the wider communities that we operate in. So I just think it's quite a novel conversation, this. We talk about it. When we did some research on this topic, Sasha and I found that there is not a lot, certainly not a lot in the organisational space around sportsmanship in there. We'd be really keen if you know of any studies that have explored the concepts of sportsmanship in organisational planning and change. I would certainly love to see that research, but I think this has been quite groundbreaking. So thank you so much, all of you who've taken the time and invested the time and the energy and actually come in and supported us for this roundtable discussion, because it's these kinds of discussions that really do bring about a momentum of change. I'd love to hear from any of you. Lyn at businesswomenaustralia.com.au. I would love to hear any ideas that you've got about future things that we could be doing and exploring, the sorts of conversations that bring about change.